Okay, I'd like to reconvene the September 24th council meeting. We'll go straight into delegations, and we have Byron and Jennifer Dolan speaking about Wharton Street bike lanes.
Good evening, council members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. This is Jennifer Dolan. My name is Byron Dolan. We live at 10915 Ward Street. We're here to talk about an investment that the people of Summerland both want and need. I'd also like to thank the people that were able to come out today to show support for this. I will warn you, our slides are a bit detailed, so I hope you'll forgive me if we summarize some of them just in the interest of time. Oh, sorry. So who are the cyclists we're thinking about today? So it's not the Grand Fondo crowd. They're an important part of our community, but they're able to get around downtown just fine. We're here for people like him and like her. So last year, my 90-year-old relative in Kelowna had to stop driving, which was a big loss for his independence. But we did find a solution, a three-wheeled e-bike. And thanks to Kelowna's investment in proper bike infrastructure, he's been able to keep his freedom, riding safely to coffee with friends, his weekly cribbage game, even doctor's appointments, all on his e-bike, even in the winter.
Our teenagers who once biked to school now don't. Why? Inattentive drivers on streets like Wharton and Victoria Road have scared them and us with too many close calls. Starting next fall, there will be hundreds of parents like us sitting in traffic at Jubilee and Kelly, dropping off kids at Summerland Elementary School, partly due to the lack of a safe bike route to school. Many will be the same kids who used to bike to Giants Head School. More bike lanes downtown have been a part of the plan for over a decade. The public consultation for the OCP changes clearly showed a AAA bike lane along Wharton. This made good sense. Building safe bike paths is more than just adding infrastructure. It's giving our community, kids, parents, seniors, the freedom to get where they need to go safely. Instead, the final OCP that was approved removed this critical bike infrastructure based on concerns that could have been managed. Some alternative future bike routes have been presented, but they are much worse than the original well-considered plan for a bike lane on Wharton. The routes down Sinclair Hill or along Prairie Valley through two roundabouts are not currently reasonable bike paths for children. Upgrading these routes to be safe is likely many years in the future and would certainly be much more expensive than a single block of bike lane beside a park on a road that is already being upgraded. With the rezoning of the Sinclair Plateau to medium density, it is likely that more and more families will move into that neighborhood. We should give them a safe and convenient way to bike to school. It gets worse. The bike lane was removed to make space for a high-angle parking and a narrower street, making Wharton much more dangerous for cyclists. This goes against what was outlined in the OCP consultation, the 2019 Cycling Master Plan, and the Downtown Neighborhood Action Plan.
So, do we really need these extra parking stalls on Wharton? The truth is, Summerland already has plenty of parking. All the areas marked in red are spots in our downtown core that are already dedicated to parking. Over 70% of residents agree that our current parking situation is fine. This is despite the fact that we haven't been managing our downtown parking as effectively as we could. We don't enforce the 2-hour limit, and we have street spaces reserved for level 2 chargers that are only used for about an hour every 3 weeks on average. If we truly need more parking downtown, we should start by fixing these issues first. So why are we eliminating a bike line that promotes active transportation and provides safe routes to the downtown core for kids and those who can't drive? More parking won't fix our long-term challenges, but adding this bike lane will make a real difference. We ask that council direct staff to update the Wharton Street plan to include a much-needed AAA bike lane. At the end of this presentation, we've added some slides with examples of what this could look like. We'd also like to thank you at this time for the investments that have been made recently to improve the bike network. The upgrades to Dale Meadows, the AAA bike lane on Jubilee, South Victoria, and Giants Head Road are all great for our community. Building up our bike infrastructure takes time and needs commitment as we upgrade our roads one block at a time. We hope that you know that the people of Summerland do support bike infrastructure and will stand behind the council's decision to focus on active transportation over more parking and driving spaces downtown. We thank you very much for your time and for your consideration.
Okay, thank you very much. Just stay there in case council has any questions. Councillor Betts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for your presentation. I think that it's been an issue that you've been really consistent about pursuing a better solution about, and I appreciate that. I know that, you know, our design plans for Wharton Street came before the decision to close Giants Head School, and that was really complicated in the design phase. And for me, sorry, that's my morning alarm, so.
You're done. Time's up.
I'm awake. So, you know, I really think that there is room for, you know, and a need for continued discussion. So my question to you, with the proposal on kind of the second to last slide, or where you have cars that parallel park and then a bike lane and then a sidewalk, is that the idea that you would see, or what other options are there for Wharton? Thinking that, you know, ideally we would keep some parking for our businesses that face the opposite way, like the home hardware, that's really important for them. Just trying to balance these needs.
Do you want to?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that, you know, we're not designers. Those are straight from the BC active transportation guide, I think is what it is. So it's clearly a design that works in many other places. I feel like there's room, particularly given how much the roadway, like the driving area has been narrowed, and switching it to parallel parking rather than angle parking. You can quickly get back those spots by just getting rid of the L2 chargers on the corner of Kelly and Wharton, which again are used legally 1 hour every 3 weeks on average.
I was just gonna add that you definitely could do the same design, but with angle parking. It would just take up, angle parking just takes up much more road width. So, I mean, I guess the real point is that there's just so many different options. It's a park, we have lots of space, we have lots of different options. There's tons of different ways you could do it. It doesn't seem to me to be an unsolvable problem.
And I guess going back to, this was part of the plan in every single design that was done part of the cycling master plan, downtown neighbor action plan, the OCP originally, and it seems like it was changed on the basis of a couple of comments about how it would be inconvenient.
Councillor Barkle.
Yeah, thanks for your presentation. I think you kind of said the way council felt when you said there's a lot of options. And we had a pretty, you know, lengthy discussion and trying to figure out, you know, which way are our kids going to come down from that Sinclair Road area and such. You know, are they going to be going down Prairie Valley and through the 2 roundabouts and stuff to get to the middle school? Or are they going to come down the road that, you know, meets with Wharton and you know, that's a nasty little hill too? Or are they going to be coming down the other hill that you pointed on Jubilee, which isn't very good either?
No, there's none of that.
And so those things were all sort of like, oh, well, we're going to have to do something. We don't know what right now. And, you know, you know, kids are going to go where they want to go too. You know, you put a bike lane in and it's not the right one, they won't use it. They might tell mom and dad they went that way, but they're going to go where their friends are going and such. So we haven't figured it out. I agree that there's probably room there for everything. We just haven't, and we've got discussions coming up right away on this, right? The active transportation. Or the transportation, will it be covered then in October?
Somebody want to try and answer that?
Yeah.
Thank you, through the mayor, Councilor Barkle. It's a little bit more pressing than that because actually we were coming for the alternative approval process for the design of Wharton based on the bike lane not being on Wharton because of previous discussion, and that was going to actually be at next council meeting. Currently, this isn't in the design of the work.
No, I wasn't suggesting that we put it back in that. I was just saying we'll have a chance to talk about all these issues. You know, what you've raised is just part of the problem, part of the puzzle. And you can be sure that we've all had the same questions and no answers yet. But I'm glad that you know, I think we'll get to a place that you like in the end. I can't speak for council, but I think, you know, like you say, there's a solution out there. There's lots of solutions.
CEO?
Thank you for the clarity, Councilor Barkwell, through the mayor. Yes, so in terms of the conversation of where it will go is unresolved yet. There's some ideas. And that is all being tied up in the consultation on the transportation master plan, which we're looking at an ETA of a draft plan ready for summer of 2025.
Councillor Peak?
Thank you very kindly, Your Worship. I'm very pleased that you came back to us. I have grandchildren that ride, and one of them has gone through middle school, is now at high school. They have a way of getting there. I would like it to be safer for their traveling, and there's 2 more coming. Right now, the family does a lot of driving, and that's just a lot of gas and a lot of carbon. So I think we need to re-examine the opportunity, and there is space at the end of the park. Maybe it's a change in the pattern of the parking. And I think that's all discussable, and I think we should review that.
Councillor Trainer?
Thanks for bringing this forward again. I agree that now that they've moved the schools around, that something does need to be done for all of the kids that live up in that neighborhood. The one thing that I think we had floated at one point was possibly putting a path through Memorial Park. So there are some options. So I don't know, maybe that's something that we could discuss at some point, but I think that might be a good option if we're not able to rework Wharton. But yeah, I agree that something needs to be done because you don't want like grade 2s going around roundabouts and stuff like that. So thanks.
Councillor Betts?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question is actually for the Director of Development Services, Brad. Can you tell me, so I'm looking at the cycling master plan, and the downtown inset that I'm seeing is actually Victoria Road north to Jubilee and around to the schools. But is there discussion about removing parking along Victoria North between really Wharton and Jubilee?
Yeah, through your worship to Councillor Betts. Yeah, that cycling master plan was developed by Urban Systems in 2019, and it wasn't done, I would say, to a fairly technical level as to how it would actually work on each street for like which angle parking or how we get around the roundabouts is another concern we have at the staff level. So we are intending with the new transportation master plan to get to a finer grain detail as to exactly where these bike connections are going to go. We've had discussions internally with staff about Victoria Road, and because of how narrow it is, it probably isn't well suited for a bike connection because of the angle parking on both sides. How already the street's narrow in terms of total width of right of way between the 2 business frontages, and our sidewalks are not that wide either. So we're looking at alternative routes to get through the downtown, and that's part of the reason why Jubilee is being targeted, as well as potentially Kelly Avenue as another connection.
Okay, don't see any further questions. Thank you very much for coming. Now move on to development reports, temporary use permit on Mill Road, and who's our planning technician, please?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This evening, I will be presenting for a temporary use permit at 9310 Milne Road. The purpose of this application is is for a temporary commercial kennel use for cat-only boarding with home occupancy business. There is no changes to the current OCP or the zoning of this property. And the existing zoning of RU3 doesn't currently allow for the proposal of this temporary use permit of a commercial kennel, but it does allow for a home occupancy as an accessory use. So this image is the floor plan of the existing basement area of the house in question. The red dotted line indicates the section that will be used for the cat boarding and subsequent home business. Home occupancy type 2 is restricted to no more than 25% of the floor area of the entire dwelling or accessory building, and up to a maximum combined area of 50 square meters. And that's how much of a house can be used under that usage. Based on staff's review, the business is actually over the combined area of 50 square meters and doesn't comply with this regulation. The applicant is proposing a working area of approximately 70 square meters. So looking for an enlarged area for a type 2 business. Another thing to consider with the home occupancy type 2, it shall not generate more than 2 clients at any given time to the business, to the home. And so the applicant has proposed an online booking system will ensure that no more than 2 clients will be on site at any given time. So it follows these regulations. And also a home occupancy type 2 should also be conducted within the interior of a dwelling or an accessory building. And the business obviously is planning on conducting all of this cat boarding within the dwelling in their basement area. So these images are from the marketing proposal submitted from the applicant. A building permit may be required for some of the renovations that they're planning to the house, as well as obviously a fire inspection. And these are normal procedures that are triggered by a business license application. So to consider the zoning bylaw affected by this proposal, staff reviewed the commercial kennel usage, and this application doesn't really comply with the minimum lot area, and also doesn't include any outdoor runs or exercise areas that you would establish with a commercial kennel. And this is because the commercial kennel regulations were written in a form because it was historically used for dogs and not really any other animals. So to pigeonhole them into commercial kennel didn't quite work. However, the home occupancy, as they would have to require a business license, the home occupancy type 2 is a permitted use in their zoning. And staff feel that the application should actually be evaluated based on an accessory use of a home occupancy type 2 and not a commercial kennel. It falls a lot more into that pigeonhole there. So for those reasons, we did evaluate it under that home occupancy, as you can see here on the left-hand side, home occupancy type 2 regulations, and then what the applicant is actually looking to propose. It loosely follows the home occupancy type 2 and ticks most of the boxes. The only one that they are looking for lenience on is the actual area that they're going to be using. As I said previously, 50 square meters is the maximum, and their basement area that they are going to require is 70 square meters. So obviously we sent it in our internal referrals The feedback that we got, obviously, as I mentioned, if there are any renovations, that will trigger a building permit. And just other evaluations in regards to what we request for a business license application. So an evacuation plan and certain smoke alarms, CO2 alarms, exactly the same as what we would always ask for in a home occupancy role. And just other requirements from our fire department there. It was brought to our Advisory Planning Commission on the 30th of August. They were querying why it was brought to them. And obviously we explained that a temporary use permit does come under the radar of the Advisory Planning Commission because it's a change in use usually to zoning. They also suggested it should be specified to cat boarding only as a condition of approval. And this way, if the property was ever sold down the line and somebody decided to take on that business, they couldn't expand it into a dog kennel and having the outdoor runs and everything else that we spoke of earlier. And so we have worked those into our conditions, which I'll touch on. So the resolution that was brought forward to them, as you see here, was carried. 4 of the members for and 3 were against. So as I said, we touched on the conditions of the permit. As council know, anytime we have a temporary use permit, it gives us a way of creating certain conditions for this because it is a temporary use outside of the normal zoning bylaw regulations. So as you see here, these are some of the conditions that we are proposing to put in. Obviously, times, business times like any other business, and the number of people that can come, as we touched on as well. So we've got those in our permits and our actual conditions. So because of the uniqueness of the application, as I said before, staff evaluated the application under the commercial kennel and also the home occupancy type 2. The application didn't fall slap bang with one of them. It was a little bit of both. So it was quite unique. Requirements needed for the cat kennel are very different from a dog kennel, a much smaller area, no outdoor running areas, a much less nuisance of noise. The application complies, as I said, with all but one of the regulations of our type 2 business, and that's the size of the area they're going to be using. And planning and preparation have occurred to ensure that minimal impacts would actually happen to any of the residents. And with that, staff are recommending approval of this temporary use permit for a term of 3 years. And with that, take any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Council, any questions? Councillor Peak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I understand about temporary use permits. It goes under that permission. If the home is sold, what is the status of a temporary use permit?
Through your worship to Councillor Peak, the temporary use permit would be specific to the use. So commercial kennel use with those conditions and tied to the property. So if the home is sold, it would still be allowed to occur for the period that's set out in the permit.
I did ask you a question before council, and I'm just going to ask this question. It's not to do with planning, but if you have a kennel, and a cat kennel in particular, you're going to have a lot of cat litter. Do we have a way of disposing of cat litter when you think about a more commercial use of that kind of product?
to Councillor Peake. It's not something that we discussed, but I do know that the fire department have certain conditions for them. They've still to do a site inspection. Whether that also covers the dumping of the refuge, I'm not sure. It's certainly something that we could certainly contact our environmental services employee about if there are going to be large sums, and put them in contact with them so they do it in a healthy, sustainable manner.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. This is like a home occupation, so will they have a sign out saying who they are?
So that's one of the conditions as well, that they would have to obviously abide by the by law regulations. At this point, they've said that they've no intentions of putting a sign in their garden. They will be doing online, Facebook, all of that. So they did say that that wasn't an avenue they were looking to go down. But we put that in the conditions just to cover that anyway, that obviously they have to abide by that.
Councillor Patton?
Thank you, Worship. So you have the 5 proposed conditions. My question is, in the correspondence we have, one of the neighbors said that if we move forward with commercial kennel, which is for dogs, that they would allow to have dogs. My question is can the conditions be more site-specific to a cattery, so that you don't, because if we do the 5 conditions, commercial kennel, it does not stop anybody with these conditions from having a dog kennel, right? So I was just wondering if there was more of a site-specific to a cattery where it would not be allowed to use it for a dog kennel.
Or cat boarding more specifically, because cattery also allows breeding. Mr. Dolan?
Through your worships to Councillor Patton. Actually, yeah, same debate occurred at the Advisory Planning Commission of that concern of, if we allow the commercial kennel use, it could get sold, and then a dog kennel could be put in that. And so the Advisory Planning Commission meeting had a pretty lengthy debate on that discussion. Ultimately, they decided to not include that condition. That's why you don't see it as a condition of the TUP for cat boarding only. It was 4-3 split vote with the Advisory Planning Commission. So 3 voted against supporting it because of that one condition not included. So if council does want to include that condition, you're more than able to add it to this permit.
Did you want to? Okay, Councillor Shannon?
Just for clarification, in the staff recommendation, it says cat only boarding. So does that not cover off our concerns?
If I may, through your worship, to Councillor Trainer, that is what the resolution is. That is the intention of the home-based business. I think to get more clear and protect any future landowners, if that's the intention, we can add it as a condition of the TUP, which it isn't currently included in the TUP.
So on the diagram, looked like there were 6 cages, so presumably they would have 6 cats at any one time? There's no, I never, anywhere I read, I didn't see mention of any limited number of cats.
To your worship, from recollection, I think it was a maximum of 12. I would have to double check. But they do have a maximum that they're allowed. Sorry for that.
Well,
12 was our maximum. With the layout that they gave us, that they could fit into the basement area.
okay. Okay, Councillor Betts?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't see a problem with this proposal. If council supports an additional amendment to the TUP, I can get behind that. But as a proposal, it's entirely contained within their home. They have a business plan to mitigate too much traffic. So I can see that this is just reasonable. It's just whether or not we think to go forward with just a change on the TUP, which I'm not certain about.
Thank you. So does somebody want to bring forward a motion? Councillor Trainer?
I'll bring forward the recommendation as presented. I think that the intent is clear. So I'm satisfied with this.
Okay, do you have a seconder? Councillor Betts? Any further discussion? We're okay not including in the cat-only boarding in the TUP conditions? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, that carries. Straight to the notices of motion. Does anybody have a notice of motion? Councillor Betts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Further to our delegation presentation today, I feel that reviewing our safe route to school, and that being likely on Wharton Street, that we should bring that back for discussion with staff and council.
So what's the motion?
Right. That
Sorry, corporate officer?
To the mayor, Councillor Betts, are we just providing notice that you're gonna bring forward a motion? Because then staff will work with you over the next 2 weeks or so to prepare the actual draft motion to bring forward at the October 15th meeting.
if that's acceptable.
Okay,
Yes,
so that
please.
works. Okay, thank you. Anybody else have a notice of motion? Okay, on to council reports. Does anybody have a report? No. Councillor Betts.
Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to speak to the event that I attended over the Fall Fair weekend. Of course, the Fall Fair here in Summerland was such a huge success, and it turned out to be a beautiful day. More entries than ever in the zucchini races, which kept everybody through the rain. And then it cleared back up to sunny. But because I didn't go until the next day to UBCM, I was able to stay for a panel that was hosted by our Fall Fair Committee, an agricultural panel on the future of farming. And it brought together, former Agriculture Minister Corky Evans, and as well as a number of other younger farmers, Indigenous partners as well. And I just found it a really interesting discussion about how we are going to support our farmers moving forward, the next generation of farmers, when our ALR lands are under more pressure than ever. And we as a district have more difficulty servicing that land than ever. And just how I think it illustrates how it, to me, should become even more of a provincial priority. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Certainly a hot topic this year, with the grape and cherry crops the way they are. Councillor Peak.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I would really like to congratulate all the volunteers for the Fall Fair. The events prior, so they did a fundraising at the Summerland Community Center, which was sold out. The addition of being able to work with even more organizations, and the music was terrific. The car show was a wonderful addition and always is. And I think it's just a great sort of beginning of fall celebration, and they just did a great job. So I want to congratulate.
Thank you. Anyone else? Then we just need a motion to adjourn. Councillor Van Elfen, Councillor Barkwell, all in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, that carries.